Good evening. I'll call a meeting to order. Special council meeting Thursday, February 2nd, 2023. This is a public meeting to discuss the 2023 City of Kawartha Lakes budget. If there's anyone in the audience who cares to make a deputation, there's a sign-up sheet outside. And there are some people who have already indicated that who are on the agenda. But those who haven't previously indicated, they can do it by putting their name on the sign-up sheet. And after we have gone through the agenda, they will have an opportunity to speak. Thank you. Looking for a motion for the adoption of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Perry, all in favor? So we have, thank you, that's passed. We have Councillors Perry, Councillors Joyce, Deputy Mayor Richardson, and Councillor Smeaton in the council chambers. And zooming in, we have Councillor Warren, Councillor Yeo, Councillor McDonald, and I believe Councillor Ashmore is on his phone. So with no other, any disclosures of pecuniary interest on anything on the agenda? Seeing none, if any arise during the course of the meeting, advise the chair, we'll deal with it accordingly. Moving on to item 4 on the agenda is an overview of the 2023 budget for the City of Kawartha Lakes, and I'll turn it over to CAO Ron Taylor.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council, and good evening to the public. As you may know, we have kicked off our 2023 city budget process already. We did that just prior to the holidays. Essentially, that was releasing the draft budgets, and there's a few of them, for 2023. They're up on our websites, and we distributed them for review. And then early on, we started our process this year, methodically going through sort of the budget reviews. In January, we had departments present their operating and overviews of what they do. On the 26th, we had additional departments finish that update off. And then we also had funded agencies, boards, and committees do presentations to council as well. This is the next step in that consultation process, an informative process. So public information meeting tonight. Following this, we'll now get into the deliberations phases of the budgets. And on February 14th, Council will be deliberating the capital budget, and then subsequently 2 weeks later, they'll start deliberations on the operating budgets, as well as the user rate water and wastewater budgets, and our special projects budgets. So our team is going to just provide a brief overview so that there's some context to the budgets, give you some background and information, sort of what we're heading into. What are some of the sort of key priorities sort of embedded in the budgets? And our lean but mean budget team is going to take you through that presentation to start. And I'd like to introduce them. We have Carolyn Daines, our city treasurer. We have Dr. Adam Fount, our manager of corporate assets. And they were essentially sort of driving through the budgets in their entirety this year. And I sort of thank them for all the work to date. Joining them, we have our new Director of Corporate Services, Sarah Bukaboom, who is tracking sort of where we're heading with budgets, and we'll be living and breathing this document once we're complete. And we had other staff, and we certainly have other staff that are tracking and following the budget process. So if we go to the next slide, I just want to talk about the agenda briefly. So we'll provide that broad-based financial overview of the city. We want to walk you through those 4 budgets that I just described, and then we'll talk about next steps in a little more detail in terms of how council will then deliberate those budgets. So with that, Mr. Mayor, and introductions, I'm going to turn it over to our team to walk through the overview. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start. The next slide, please, and the next slide after that. So a brief financial overview. Our operating budget from 2018 to 2023 hasn't really changed. In fact, I bet if you went back probably to 2008 to 2023, our overall operating budget hasn't changed. We support roads, waste and transit, police, fire, paramedics, parks, rec, libraries, building, planning, economic development, and all of our human services departments. And you can see there that the percentage of money spent hasn't really changed in this period, at least. Next page. So for the operating budget highlights since 2018, we introduced a special projects budget, which houses all of our one-time non-capital related operating expenditures. That would be the studies and that sort of thing that goes on in the city. It allows staff to spend money for longer than a year period. And we introduced rate stabilization reserves to stabilize our tax levy increases. We've partnered with Peterborough County on shared services, mainly in the ambulance paramedic area. In 2022, we did a 10-year long-range financial plan that plotted out what our revenue and expenditures and our capital expenditures are going to be for the next 10 years. And in that plan, we have proposed a 3% increase throughout all of the 10 years. And so this 2023 budget has a 3% tax increase included. And we have introduced the Empower program, which is looking at our services now that we've come out of the pandemic and how they've changed and how we're going to alter services in the future. Next page, please. So we have, I'll just briefly go over capital budget highlights, but Adam found we'll get into that more as we go through the presentation. But we've invested more than $160 million in rehabilitation, replacement, construction, and acquisition of municipal assets since 2018. We've revitalized 3 downtown areas. I'm sure you're aware: Lindsay, Fallon Falls, and Omimi. Omimi's ongoing right now. We've constructed the new Mariposa Fire Station, Logie Park, and we've expanded the Bobcaygeon Beach Park. And we have reconstructed, rehabilitated, or resurfaced over 680 kilometers of roads in that period. Next page, please. If you look here, from 2018 to projected out to 2027 is our tax levy increases. So we've averaged about 2.82% per annum, but that was actually less than what we had planned to do. We had planned to keep a steady 3% tax increase. So this graph that you can see here excludes our 1.5% per annum for our infrastructure levy that helps to assist us going forward with our capital budget. Next page, please. So we talked a little bit about the long-range financial plan, but it is going to be a guiding document for the future for the next 10 years. So we looked at all the legislative requirements that the city has to follow. We have master plans for most of our services now, so we've built all that into the future revenues and expenditures. This is going to be our document as we look forward in the next 10 years, but after the budget is passed each year, we will update that for council to show them how far off we were or how close we were, and adjust as we move forward through the 10 years. Next slide, and the next slide after that. So we have, as the CAO discussed, we have 5 budgets. We have our property tax supported operating budget, our capital budget, and our special project budget. And then we have our water and wastewater, which is user rate supported, not tax levy supported. So based on usage of water throughout the water and sewer throughout the city of Kawartha Lakes. And for that, we have an operating and a capital budget. Next page, please. So this shows you our proposed 2023 budget with property tax supporting a major portion of the operating budget, the capital budget, the special projects, and again, the water and wastewater operating and capital. Next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it over, oh, sorry, there is just one more. That's it. Sorry, so I'll turn it over to Adam for his discussions on capital budgets.
Oh, okay, great, Carolyn. So yeah, we can, good. We are at the next slide. This slide shows a summary of the breakdown of the capital expenditures being proposed for next year. And what you'll notice probably right away is that the roads component makes up almost half of the total proposed expenditure, which is roughly in line with what we would expect on an annual basis. Where this graph is probably a little different from the annual average would be in two locations. So if you look at the green section, which corresponds to landfills, that's quite a bit higher than it normally would be, and that is because of the need to construct another cell at the Lindsay Ops landfill. And as you can imagine, it's not something that we do every year. It's something that we might do every 4 or 5 years. And then in the red section, which you'll see corresponds to fleet and equipment, that too is larger than it normally would be, and that's primarily because of our efforts to catch up on capital backlogs in both the public works and fire fleet portfolios. But when you total everything up, you get about 56.6 million, and when you compare that to our long-term financial plan, that is roughly what we should expect to spend this year on capital. Next slide, please. So this wheel breaks down the other side of the capital budget, which is the financing side. And so what you'll notice rather apparently is that a large portion of, in fact, the greatest contributor to this financing wheel is coming from the asset management reserve at about $17 million or 30% or so. And then the next largest contributor is debenture. And then there's various other contributors there as well. Again, this is more or less in line with our long-term financial plan. Next slide, please. So I thought I would just go over some of the highlights that are included in this proposed capital budget. So first and foremost, it is in alignment with our long-term financial plan, and it is consistent with our continued commitment and focus with respect to priority investments in roads. So that's something that we've heard loud and clear as staff, and I think as council has heard loud and clear from taxpayers. I mentioned earlier that we're taking a significant step forward when it comes to reducing the backlogs in both fire fleet and public works fleet portfolios. This budget also includes some new acquisitions for the community paramedic service program, which is relatively new to the city. It also includes a design for a new bridge over the Ops number 1 drain, or sometimes referred to as West Jennings Creek, and that is needed to facilitate the substantial development that is planned for Northwest Lindsay. We've also got, as I mentioned, the construction of a new cell at the Lindsay Ops landfill, which is needed to ensure that landfill can continue to operate. And then I mentioned earlier that we're closing the gap when it comes to the public works fleet capital portfolio. So next slide, please. So something that our treasurer mentioned a moment ago is the dedicated capital levy. And as I think I mentioned before at an earlier occasion, I don't believe that the importance of this can be overstated. This levy is absolutely critical to ensuring that the long-term financial plan can be fulfilled and that we can become financially sustainable over the long term. So this is a levy that was first introduced for 2022. And as the treasurer mentioned, it's structured such that it is funded by 1.5% increases or tax increases over the next 10 years on a cumulative basis. And to give you some perspective as to what the impact of that is for 2023, that would equate to about $37 for the average household. So next slide, please. So now I'll roll into the special projects budget. As the city treasurer mentioned, this budget is used to house operating projects which really, for a couple of different reasons, should be managed as though they're capital projects. And that is because these projects typically require more than a year to be completed. And also, it's a good idea to really expose these projects to council and the public to give them a greater level of transparency and understandability. So for those two reasons, since 2020, we've been exposing these projects through what we're referring to as the special projects budget. So what do these projects typically include? Well, they're often studies, plans, or strategies. Also, Ontario Land Tribunal appeals, which are very costly to the city. And then we also would have some special one-time operating initiatives like the purchasing of software or something of that nature, which does not result in the acquisition or improvement to a capital asset. Next slide, please. This slide shows both sides of the special projects budget proposed for next year. So on the left, we have expenditure totaling about $2.16 million, which again is more or less in line with the long-term financial plan. You'll see that studies, plans, and strategies make up the largest component of that expenditure, followed by uncapitalized improvements. And within the uncapitalized improvements, by far the largest project in there is the acquisition and development of the next generation 911 system for the Kawartha Lakes Police Service. On the other side, we've got the financing breakdown, and you'll see that the vast majority of the financing comes directly from the tax levy, with the balance coming from a few different sources. So next slide, please. So just touching on a few highlights from the special projects budget, as I mentioned, it includes the implementation of the next generation 911 system. It also includes expenses that we expect to incur at the Ontario Land Tribunal because of appeals of the secondary plan in the rural zoning bylaw. We've got some funding earmarked for performance management software and some body cameras for the municipal law enforcement officers. And then finally, there's a Parks and Recreation strategic plan, which is a significant initiative that will help us plan for the growth-related costs in that area for the long term. Next slide, please. All right, so now we switch over to the water wastewater part of the budget, and up first in that category is the operating part of that budget, which totals about $14.3 million. And this slide here shows both the expenses and revenue sides of that part of the budget. So on the expenses side, you'll see that direct costs for treatment and distribution and debt servicing make up the majority of the expenses. And then you also see there's quite a strong contribution to the water reserve, which goes to support capital needs related to water. On the revenue side, you'll see that almost all of the revenue comes from user rates, and you'll see also that the user rates are divided into two components. There's a fixed portion, which is unrelated to consumption, and then there's a consumptive portion, which is related to consumption. Next slide, please. So this is the mirror image of things on the wastewater side. And again, direct treatment and collection and debt service and make up the majority of the expenses. And again, we see quite a strong contribution to the wastewater reserve. And again, that's to support current and future capital needs. On the revenue side, unsurprisingly, we've got user rates making up the vast majority of the revenue. And then there's a few other revenue sources that are added in there. So next slide, please. This shows the capital budget for water wastewater being proposed for 2023. Probably for those that are familiar with this budget, the first thing you'll notice likely is that it's about half of what it would normally be, and that is because of the need to scale this particular budget back in order to allow staff to catch up on a project backlog that has accumulated over the COVID period. On the expenditure side, you'll see that water treatment and horizontal distribution and collection make up the vast majority of the expenditures. And then on the financing side, the reserves, both water and wastewater combined, make up almost all of the financing. And the reason for that is because of this capital budget being scaled back, there isn't a need to issue any debenture to support this particular budget. Next slide, please. So some of the highlights from this budget, and I know some of these I've mentioned, but I'll go over them again. The capital program has been scaled back to enable us to catch up on existing projects, and that results in a debt holiday for water wastewater. Otherwise, the budget is aligned with the water wastewater rate study and the long-term financial plan. And just to make sure council is assured that staff did work very closely with all of the stakeholders involved, including operations and Aqua, to ensure that we really are addressing the most urgent capital needs for 2023, and that any of those that are being deferred will be caught up with over the coming years. And lastly, because this budget is in line, both operating and capital, with the long-term financial plan, we see that the proposed user rate increase is 3%. And I believe that's quite consistent with how it has been for the last number of years. Next slide, please. I think it's back to you. Yeah.
So I'm just going to give a brief overview of what the operating budget looks like. So we're going to start with expenditures. No surprise that our salary, wages, and benefits make up 80.8 million of the total expense budget of 236.5. Our transfer to external clients is mainly in the human services area for childcare, the Ontario Works budget. We have materials, supplies, and services, which is mainly in the public works area, and we have our debt and financial payments for 10.3 million that are used to finance the capital budgets in the past. Next slide. And not a big surprise that our 236.5 revenue budget, the majority of it is taxation of 136.7 million. Our grants make up 61.8 million, and that's again primarily in the human services area, where we receive funding from the government for childcare, Ontario Works, that sort of thing, and the Manor as well. And then we have user charges, which is mainly in the community service area for programs that we run, and then just other of 10 million. Next slide. So where does 136.7 million in tax dollars go? So we have a big chunk of it, obviously, is the same as in capital as in operating. Our roads area, public works area, makes up 32% of this. Emergency services of 28%. And human services, which is, again, that Ontario Works childcare area, is 11%. Contribution to capital and special projects, which is how we fund those capital budgets and special projects budget, of 11%. And then the various other departments, as you can see in that graph. Next slide, please. We'll Okay, I'm going to turn it over to our CAO, Ron, to finish up.
Thanks, Carolyn, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, just, on behalf of the team, for the opportunity to just provide some comments and some overview and context. I mentioned that in terms of next steps, again, deliberations will start on February 14th for the special council for capital budgets, and then on February 28th, we'll look after the operating special projects, water and wastewater operating and capital budgets. I do want to say that, I said it sort of in the opening sort of to council, in terms of the context, that our team, our department staff are quite proud of the budget that we're putting forward. You heard that it's meeting some of the targets and forecasts. But I got to say, in sort of my career in municipal worlds at least, and I think in everybody's world, there's just so many new pressures and issues and items that we're trying to combat concurrently. I don't need to talk about some of these in detail, but inflationary pressures are right across the board in all of our services. That's resulting in increasing costs, and so we're having to sort of manage that and test the markets out there. That's causing delays in how we're getting our services and our goods. And as you know, time is money, and so that results in backlogs, but just the ability to implement these projects in those given calendar years. Revenues, we've deliberately proposed to stay sort of very tight and not rely on external one-time grant funds from upper levels of government. And also you heard user rates and fees and charges, trying to keep those at a sustainable or affordable level for the community. And then the other, which is really not a pandemic problem, it transcends that, is our asset portfolio, our aging infrastructure. We're managing and dealing with over $4 billion in valued assets and trying to keep those, keep them alive, keep the life cycle sort of extending and going. And so doing the best we can to sort of invest back overall. So I really do think you've got a good budget in front of you. And we'll just go to the final slide. Again, just invite the public and anybody interested, follow along with the process, get active. We are starting those meetings to deliberate in the next month. But certainly you can track and get all of this information online on the city's website, where we have the full budget published, as well as other supplementary information. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, again, I'll just thank you for the opportunity, and we'll answer any questions that your group might have.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And just to note that this budget supports over 200 city services, and in our discussions with other communities, they're talking about tax increases that go anywhere. The lowest I heard was about 5%, and the most I heard was about 14%. So working with 3 and a levy of 1.5 seems quite modest in comparison. But it would be nice to be 0, but I don't see how that might happen. In any event, are there any questions for any of the group? I know you've seen this overview before, so thank you. Okay, seeing none, I need a motion to, you will get your opportunity when it's your deputation, Mr. Denby. Thank you. You're welcome. Seeing none, can I have a motion to receive the, thank you, Councillor Perry, Councillor Smeaton, all in favor? And that's passed. Moving on, we now have presentations, and our first presentation is by the Ross Memorial Hospital, their 2023 budget request. Mr. Kelly Isfan and Tim Schaff. I don't know if they're both here or... Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. I do apologize.
You never know.
Thank you. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Emsley, councillors, and city staff for allowing us to meet with you this evening. Ross Memorial Hospital and the City of Kawartha Lakes enjoy a long-standing partnership and work together in many ways to make the City of Kawartha Lakes a healthy place to live, work, and play. Thank you for the previous council's grant of $1 million last year to support the digital transformation underway at the Ross. Next slide, please. As outlined in the materials we submitted in advance, we're here tonight to formally present our request for further funding of $4 million in support of priority initiatives at the hospital, which will help us keep pace with population growth in the community and strengthen the services we already deliver. So as per the slide, I want to talk a little bit about the clinical information system. This system connects patients' electronic medical records with bedside medical equipment and technology throughout the hospital to ensure that clinical information from vital signs monitors, imaging scans, lab results are immediately available to caregivers. So as soon as the result comes up, it is instantaneously transported to the medical record. That allows physicians, nurses, and others to spend more time with the patients and less time looking for lab results and duplicating things. It's really been a game changer for us. The clinical information system, also you heard about it in the news, called EPIC, allows us to attract and retain our talented medical and other staff, because in this market, physicians, nurses, and others expect a hospital to have a clinical information system of this caliber. And finally, MyChart is a component of the CIS, and MyChart allows patients access to their medical record. Everything from the record, test results, medication lists, past appointments, future appointments, it's all in that patient's record, readily available, and can be shared with their clinicians, not only in our hospital, but in many others. Next, we've replaced our CT scanner and will be replacing our MRI this year. Our diagnostic imaging department conducts 75,000 exams annually, and as technology evolves, demand will only increase. Our new scanners are able to diagnose faster with greater precision, and in the case of CT, with much less harmful radiation. Both the CT and MR also integrate seamlessly with the CIS. Images are immediately embedded in patient charts and available to the care team at the Ross, and also to specialists at other hospitals, including the Regional Cancer Center. Thirdly, there's other important essential equipment that integrates with our CIS, such as IV pumps and vital signs monitors. With the vital signs monitor, once the result comes up on the machine, it is up to the second transferred right over to the patient chart. It's been a real game changer. With the IV pumps, there's much less potential for human error and much greater patient safety. And with the next slide, I'm excited to tell you about some new things. Since we presented to Council in 2021, we've incorporated the next phase of our urgent capital priorities. These are the start of an exciting multi-year transformation that will expand both the hospital and the services we provide. In our emergency room, we will expand to include a mental health emergency services unit. And the creation of a MISU unit within the ED will provide a dedicated space so that when patients present with a mental health crisis, there's a dedicated private space for assessment, crisis intervention and stabilization, and stress management in a patient-centered environment. This will make it safer for those patients and also for our staff, and we believe create a much nicer environment across the emergency department. We also need a new contemporary trauma room in the ED equipped with airborne isolation capacity. Next, our ICU must be modernized. It currently squeezes 10 beds into a space that was never meant for 10 beds. And if you've ever been in an ICU, you quickly realize there's a lot of equipment and a lot of technology in that room with the patient. Some of our current ICU rooms are a third of the size of current standards. Just because as care has evolved and machinery has evolved, the rooms have not kept up with that. So we require more space. Plans there also include an airborne isolation room. And these rooms help prevent the spread of airborne germs using negative pressure. So airflow can flow into the room, but contaminated air does not flow back out into the rest of the facility. And I think COVID has taught all of us that airborne isolation rooms are standard of care, particularly in a busy emergency room and ICU. And next I'll ask Tim Schaaf to join me here.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and city staff and councillors. My name is Tim Schaaf, and I'm a volunteer with the Foundation, Ross Memorial Hospital Foundation Board, and also the volunteer chair of the Foundation's campaign that we're speaking about tonight. To date, we've actually raised $14 million through submissions and contributions from the community for these priority projects. And I think that demonstrates some significant and substantial support and recognition of the importance of infrastructure, such as a hospital medical care in our city. And it's come from residents, grateful patients, and business patrons who have stepped up and believe in it as well. I'm also President and CEO of Commonwealth Mutual Insurance Group, and we're very pleased to step forward and committed $500,000 to support the campaign, in keeping with a long history of supporting medical elements and medical needs in a variety of communities that we serve. Communities and our employees live, and our members who insure with us also live as well. The community is definitely behind us, and we can achieve so much more with the city's support and involvement, and that support would really be invigorating and I think inspire others to give as well. When I first got involved with the Hospital Foundation, I'm slow, so it takes a little while to get used to new parlance, new components, new industries. But what surprised me is I thought that medical and healthcare was publicly funded. And it is, but new equipment, replacement equipment, and technology is not. That's called the community share. And that community share has to come from somebody other than the provincial government, the Ministry of Health. And so businesses stepping up, individuals stepping up, past patients, and benevolent individuals within the community are so key in order for communities to be able to raise the money that we need, and for hospitals and municipalities to be able to work together, to be able to deliver those critical projects and meet the needs of communities, and for ours, a community that's growing. When you have growth, you have to be more attentive to that, to be in anticipation of it, to be able to meet it. You can't meet the need after it's exceeded. You have to try and keep up with it. 21 days ago and before, I was logically connected and committed to this program. 20 days ago, I became personally connected through our family and emotionally connected with this program. And the EPIC program that Kelly spoke to, we've seen firsthand in our family how at the Ross, with specialists, with other hospitals, with the patient information available, has been amazing. The timeliness of it, the connectedness of it has been huge. I'm not using our family as an example. We're one of many families who have faced that and will face that. And as we grow, we need to have the technology, the investment, the capital in order to be able to achieve what we need and to connect doctors, specialists, different locations, and patients immediately with their own information and data. Every day of this investment, this will become more personal and emotionally connected for somebody else in our community. And I think that's why we all understand that medical care and health care is so important. We're simply asking Council to consider our request for $4 million to support these priorities which will help the hospital keep up with the population growth, the infrastructure that's required, and to continue to deliver outstanding care. Thank you.
Thank you. I maybe get you to stay there in case council has any questions for you. Are there any questions from council for the deputants?
I have one.
Councillor Ashmore.
Yeah, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, to the deputants. I know that being on the board before, and the foundation does a great job. They do an awesome job. Have you been increasing your foundation work to reach out to do your philanthropy in the community? I'm just looking at other hospitals. I know we can't compare Ross Memorial Hospital to, say, like Mount Sinai, but I use that as an example of how they used corporate donors and individual donations and corporate sponsorships to bring the money in to help fund the hospital. Could you tell us how much in total the foundation has brought in? Because their job is specifically to raise money, and they do a great job, but I didn't hear exactly how much that they raised this year and what they're planning on raising next year in total, please.
Okay. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think our annual budget is in the range of about $2 to $3 million, but we've been working with special donors, corporate donors. We are looking at branching out, and you know, there's a generation that has been very open and very diligent with giving to the hospital in the past. We need to find that next generation as well. And then we're also looking at other businesses that operate within our territory that are part of our growth, developers and other aspects like that. And we've seen some success with that. And a lot of those efforts with our team at the foundation has led to such a strong start of $14 million being raised to this point.
Okay, thanks. And finally, just one more question, please, Mr. Mayor. We'll make a decision on this in a couple of weeks. Would you be willing to supply council with your most recent financial statements, just so we have a general idea as to what your financial picture is, please, if you'd be willing to supply that to us within the next week, so we can make an informed decision in the next few weeks on this?
Yes, I don't see any issue with that. Mayor Elmsley or Ron, you can speak with Aaron Coons, our executive director, for that information.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the deputants? Seeing none, thank you very much for coming. Oh, Emmett, sorry. Councillor Yeo.
All right, it's lonely up here. A question, the $4 million ask, is that a one-time, like you need it this year, or is that an ask that can be stretched over a couple of years, or when one of these purchases is going to take place?
So Kelly can maybe speak to a bit more of what's in flight and what has already occurred and what is yet to occur. We are certainly open to the time frame that the council would see fit. I think the feedback we had with council last year was they were not comfortable committing beyond the term of that council. We respect that, and so that's why we're here asking for your consideration with your council's term for additional consideration there over a time frame and in a way that you would see fit.
Anything else?
That's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Perry?
Just very briefly, and thanks very much for the presentation. For the $4 million request, would you be able to, in addition to what Councillor Ashmore has requested, provide a costing of that ask, so we're able to see where the money is being allocated over time?
For sure, and I think within the pre-read material, I think it did show a breakdown of the main categories of the components, but it would be the clinical information system, the MRI and CT, some other information, as well as the ER expansion or redo and the ICU, yes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, can I have a motion to receive the deputation from the Ross Memorial Hospital and refer it to staff to become a decision unit in the 2023 budget? Councillor Perry, Councillor Joyce, all in favor? And that's passed. Moving on to item 5.2, we have the Kawartha Art Gallery 2023 budget request. We have Ms. Taylor and Ms. Beard.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and staff, and thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this evening regarding the future of Kawartha Art Gallery and Kawartha Lakes cultural development. My name is Susan Taylor, the Executive Director at Kawartha Art Gallery, and with me tonight is Dion Beard, the gallery's bookkeeper. While I have had the good fortune to work with many of you in regards to the City of Kawartha Lakes cultural sector, there are some new council representatives around the table, and I would like to provide a short overview of the gallery. Next slide, please. Kawartha Art Gallery has been in place in the City of Kawartha Lakes for 47 years. As an art gallery, Kawartha Art Gallery offers exhibit opportunities for Ontario artists, cultural programming, and events. The gallery is also the steward of a permanent collection of 150 artworks for the citizens of the City of Kawartha Lakes. The current appraisals of the collection in the gallery is over $1 million. In conversation with Director Shanks recently, when I shared this collection information with him, he asked in a very polite way, "So what?" A great question. It was very polite. And the answer is that the gallery's collection represents over $1 million of cultural tourism potential. The gallery has in the collection 6 pieces of original artworks by a group of 7 artists. Using the stories behind the artwork, the gallery received a $65,000 RTO8 tourism grant for 2 cultural tourism projects in 2022. A free Movie Under the Stars program partnership with Parks Canada, Fleming College, and the city, and a Group of 7 exhibit and event partnership with Fleming College that was based on the 2 Group of 7 artists that painted in the Kawarthas. Both events contributed to cultural tourism in the Kawartha Lakes by contributing to the visitor economy, building an event foundation that the gallery can build on to attract future visitor investment into our community's economy. Next slide, please. This is a list of just recent partnerships at the gallery or different organizations that the gallery has worked with. Curve Lake in Pingwa was a grant program that equipped Curve Lake First Nation youth with digital skills they need for jobs of the future, while providing opportunities for the youth to create new media artworks that reinterpreted their heritage in new and dynamic ways. This grant realized a dedicated makerspace building in Curve Lake for the continuation of the program beyond the grant's end date. Parks Canada and Fleming College partnership projects for our community with a focus on film and the environment. Elementary school curriculum through our area school board and the Catholic school board, that visiting classes participated in activities geared to a variety of subjects under Ontario curriculum. A place called Home, a partnership with Youth Mural Art Project between the gallery and a place called Home with a focus on homelessness. Women's Resources was a partnership program where the gallery provided art programming for children who've been exposed to domestic abuse. We've worked with the city's Economic Development Department. Canada Day 2020 project remains a particular source of pride. This project was highlighted on the national news in 2020. Jump In and Express Yourself, a gallery partnership with the city's Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Committee. The project was an online youth project where youth were invited to submit their art and thoughts on the identified priority areas of the Safety and Wellbeing Plan. I was just contacted by Haliburton County. Their municipality wants to create a program along the same lines as this partnership project between the city and the gallery. Next slide, please. This is our favorite slide of this presentation. It talks about the money. Not the money we want, the money we want to generate for our community. In 2016, visitor spending at cultural tourism destinations was over $1.8 million in the Kawartha Lakes and over $6 million on retail product. Culture is not a special interest group. Culture is business, a billion-dollar industry in Ontario. It is the gallery's strategic plan to develop cultural tourism opportunities to realize a significant piece of that billion-dollar pie for our community. Next slide, please. There is considerable evidence of the benefits of municipal investment in culture. Cities that distinguish themselves from other cities based on strong cultural identities gain a competitive advantage as destination cities for cultural tourism. The City of Kawartha Lakes municipality has invested in their creative economy. There has been partnership with the city on the awareness and education and advocating for the economic value of the cultural sector. There's been leadership and participation that realized a feasibility study for a cultural center in the city. Infrastructure, there's a $100,000 budget commitment made by Council in 2022 for phase 2 of the feasibility study to determine a site, but the municipality has not yet moved forward with developing an operating funding program for our cultural organizations. Next slide, please. Oops, there it comes. Thank you. Why is operational funding so important to the gallery's future? In 2014, Council approved a monthly deposit of $3,389.04 from the city until May 2016 for the gallery. The money was provided to the gallery for operating costs. This steady monthly income of funding provided the necessary core funding for the gallery to support the hiring of staff. With qualified staff in place, the gallery realized a 3-year Ontario Trillium Foundation grant with the Pingwa Association and Curve Lake for $750,000. In total, since 2014, the gallery has realized over $1.1 million in grant monies for cultural events, programs, and services for our community. However, it is not a financially sustainable business model for any organization to try and survive on grants alone. Many grants are project-based with start and end dates, resulting in no organizational stability for the continued delivery of services to our community. The pandemic created a significant increase in our community's interest in cultural programming, events, and services, and the gallery will not be able to meet the demand without qualified staff in place. The gallery has several grant applications in place for 2023, but there are no guarantees that the gallery's applications will be approved. Next slide, please. In acknowledging the limitations with project grants, the gallery has been working to secure provincial operational funding through the Ontario Arts Council. Council did receive a staff report in 2022 that stated that there were no provincial operational funding streams available for cultural organizations. This information was not accurate. There is a specific criteria that a public art gallery needs to meet to be eligible for operational funding through Ontario Arts Council, and the gallery has been working to meet that criteria since January 2022. If approved, the funding the gallery will receive is a 3-year stream of operational funding, and if the gallery maintains their eligibility, they qualify to have the funding renewed for each consecutive 3-year stream. Financially, to be eligible for Ontario Arts Council funding, the gallery needs to have a minimum operating budget of $75,000. Without any core operational funding to keep the gallery's operating budget at a minimum of $75,000, the gallery will lose the organization's ability to apply for the Ontario Arts Council funding. The gallery does not want a handout from the city. We are asking for a hand up. A 3-year budget line commitment for the gallery from the city is seed funding, an investment that will leverage significant other potential grant funding sources and safeguard the growing cultural needs of our community. With a memorandum of understanding developed between the gallery and the city that would define the gallery as a municipal asset with an arm's length relationship, the gallery looks forward to establishing a working partnership between the gallery and economic development that would see collaboration on the delivery of cultural programming, events, and services for our community. With other Eastern Ontario galleries receiving municipal funding that makes up to 30 to 100% of their operating budgets, there are current municipal funding program examples available for the city of Kawartha Lakes to draw on. The gallery has met with the Art Gallery of Peterborough, and the Art Gallery of Northumberland and Cobourg, both municipally supported galleries, and we have reviewed their funding and governance models. I congratulate the city on its partnership with the Kawartha Lakes Arts Council on the Cultural Centre feasibility study. With the recommendations of the feasibility study identifying a large facility need for our community, I further congratulate the city on its long-term strategic capital investment of $2.5 million. The city is now in a position to realize a cultural centre for our municipality within the next 3 to 4 years. However, for the gallery to be a vibrant lead community organization in the new centre, it needs funding now. If the city decides not to provide core funding, the gallery will have no option but to shutter the gallery, wind down the corporation, and disperse the gallery's permanent collection. The collection will be then distributed to a charitable organization outside the Kawarthas that is equipped to provide the appropriate level of collection conservation. Next slide, please. This is the thought I'd like to leave you with. Planning is critical to success in every facet of our lives. Cultural planning offers an opportunity for communities to create a roadmap unique to their needs, aspirations, and strengths. By planning strategically, local governments and art groups can work together to integrate arts and culture more fully into their community. The gallery is looking for that opportunity to work together with our municipality to integrate arts and culture into our community. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd stay there for a couple of minutes, there may be some questions. I see Councillor Smeaton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just really quickly, obviously, I know familiar with the facility and great presentation. I know how hard you work, Susan, obviously.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question about, you celebrated one particular event, the Canada Day, with the Economic Development Department, and I was just wondering if there were any current plans taking place, regular meetings with the Economic Development Division, something else on the upcoming, or was that a one-off, something you're looking forward to doing more of?
The board chair, Don Hughes, and I met with Rebecca Mustard on Tuesday to discuss resuming our relationship with economic development, and we expressed a great desire to collaborate on events, exhibits, all cultural services.
Councillor Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, your business slide, you mentioned some the economic benefits, and I couldn't grab my pen fast enough. Could you repeat those numbers, the economic in local for Kawartha Lakes, not nationally?
You mean the economic value?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I can pretty much tell you off the top of my head that it's okay. Culture contributes $27.5 billion, or 3.3% of Ontario's gross domestic product. Mm-hmm. And now, did you want them just for the Kawarthas?
For the Kawarthas, yes.
Okay, so the last figures I had were 2016.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
When we did a presentation in 2019, that was the last figures we were able to access. So going by the figures from 2016, 1.8 million for cultural tourism destinations and over $6 million in retail product. Thanks.
Okay. And this is all cultural activities in Kawartha Lakes was measured to bring in these dollar figures in 2016?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, culture brings in business. I'm well aware of that. I just wanted to measure, so thank you very much.
Yes, and I guess I would just say further to that the pandemic really changed what culture can be. And there's a lot of organizations that provide social services that are now reaching out to the gallery for programming and event support.
Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you.
I have Deputy Mayor Richardson, then Councillor Ashmore, and then Councillor Perry.
Thank you, and through you, and thank you for the presentation. And we certainly recognized the last council, pulling together the cultural master plan. I just want to go back on the numbers a little bit. So that $75,000 you need to do the funding to move ahead, and do you have like the $25,000 already set aside for this year? I'm just trying to understand your graph.
Okay, I'm going to let Dion speak to the numbers.
Yeah, so we were fortunate to get some COVID recovery funds, so we have some of that set aside for this year so far, and that's why we're kind of, introducing the need to then increase it over the 3 years. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Ashmore.
Thank you. Through you to Susan and Dion. Just a quick question on what your thoughts were of a spoken hub system. Like we've discussed it. We met actually at the art gallery, yourself and I, and actually Councillor Elmsley at the time. We had a good discussion, and then at the Lakeview Arts Barn in May, I think it was May of 2019, we had a huge turnout, and we stressed the importance of the arts and how much money it puts into the economy. I know you guys, you work so hard, and I, for the nominal amount of money that you're asking here. But I just want to ask you what your thoughts were of the spoken hub system instead of one centralized cultural center. What are your thoughts on that for the future?
Oh, the spoken wheel that was in
spoken wheel, yeah.
Yes. That's a really good question. Thank you. When the feasibility study was being initiated, I contacted Donna Goodwin and Angela Finelli, and this was in early 2020, and suggested we start visiting the area cultural organizations to reassure them that this feasibility study, that the cultural master plan was not meant to shut anybody down. It was meant to strengthen them. So when I look at the wheel and hub model, I look at the cultural center as being the hub, and the spokes would be all those existing cultural organizations that are in effect now, that this, if anything, will strengthen their future because there would be resources for them to draw on that was made available through the center, which would be the cultural building, the cultural center building. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Susan. Thank you for your hard work there. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councillor Perry.
Thanks very much for the excellent presentation. I know growing up in Fenland, whenever I hear about a wheel and spokes, I always get a bit concerned that we get to be the spokes. Outside of Lindsay, we kind of get relegated our culture to the spokes. So I would just put that out there for consideration. Well, what I do want to say is I commend you on the slide, which shows the economic contribution in percentages and in terms of employment, quarter growth, excellent facts and figures. I'd just like to make a comment about how I understand these days everything seems to need to be couched in terms of job creation and economic growth and tourism. But I just want to add that culture has an inherent and intrinsic worth beyond that we are our culture, and it fosters identity beyond the clear economic benefits, contributes to our quality of life and our well-being of all of us as individuals and communities. We're really nothing without our identity and culture. And I just wanted to make sure that that was considered in these submissions as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for your presentation. Council, I need a motion to receive the deputation from the Kawartha Art Gallery 2023 budget request and refer it as a decision unit to the 2023 budget deliberations. Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Ashmore. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Our next presenter is the Kawartha Lakes Museum and Archives 2023 budget request. Ms. Barbara Doyle, Managing Director, Kawartha Lakes Museum and Archives. Good evening and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. To you and to Council, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Barbara Doyle and I am the Managing Director of the Kawartha Lakes Museum and Archives. Some of you may remember us as being the old jail, or some people would have called the old goal, and run by the Victoria County Historical Society. Next slide. I am so grateful and appreciative for the ongoing capital investment into our fantastic heritage building that you're all very well aware of being right next door to you, helping to keep it open year-round for our community members and tourists, as well as the support and incredible work of the many staff members that have helped us get through a major capital project of the wall removal and setting the stage for the courtyard redevelopment for our planned growth. Over the last few years, despite the global pandemic and significant legislative closures, the museum has been deliberate and unrelenting in its efforts to improve capacities, collection management, and oversight. Creation of fresh exhibitions and community engagement, as well as the fundamental improvements of community museum standards, governance, and fundraising. Next slide. We have added a significant amount of technical assets, including a network computer system with 12 hubs for our staff and research. We upgraded to a cloud-based museum software system so that 10 workers can be online at any one time, working in live concert with each other and being able to work remotely. That was very significant in our pandemic ability to survive, that our workers, when they weren't allowed in the building, could keep their jobs and work from home. Adding multiple screens, interactive screens throughout the exhibition spaces, a smart board, which has been very supportive of our educational committee for our school tours, and adding a new planetary scanner, which is a fantastic scanner for our organization. We have the only one in Kawartha Lakes. It will scan an entire sheet of newsprint digitally without harming the original document. It actually doesn't cause heat or damage to it in any way, so it protects the archival item and allows for us to digitize all of those really important records of our community so that we can eventually put them all online. And also we added a new microfilm scanner reader to address our microfilm collection and being able to add more pieces to that collection. Next slide. This has facilitated our ability to have more staff working in real time in the system, creating new exhibits, completing research requests. We get research requests almost daily, and they're local. They're about our local community members. Just yesterday, I received one of a gentleman looking for a marriage certificate from a couple in Verulam Township. Today, I got a research request from Emily Turner of the city staff looking for some information on heritage properties. So we're a very big research hub in the community about our local area, Kawartha Lakes, formerly Victoria County. We are continually digitally cataloging our collection. We started collecting in 1957. We have thousands and thousands of these yellow cards that were typewritten by amazing volunteers and staff over the decades of service. And we are now at about 65% digitally cataloged. Being able to turn inwards during the pandemic, keep the work going because we had our plan in place, allowed us to really accelerate that work. We know that this aligns with the city's cultural master plan and the desire to have our collections digitally accessible and shareable between all of us within our different museums in our city and with the city staff as well. So we've been working very diligently towards that. Our records are many cases of filing cases of them. We have about 40,000 objects in our museum. And I just want you to take a moment and just kind of grasp the sheer volume of that and the care and record keeping that comes along with that, as well as storage and turning those items into accessible content, developing the information into exhibits online and in the building, and how much work there is to do to actually make that usable for our community members and tourists alike. It's just it's an incredible volume of items. When we, sorry, I'm a little nervous because you wouldn't think I would be, but I am a little bit nervous. When we look at what makes us different, what makes our museum unique, you know, we've heard over the years that this council would like us to kind of be like the ROM, and we are. We're like the ROM of the Kawarthas. Many council members sitting here today, and many members in the gallery have been into the museum, especially in the last couple of years, and have seen the amazing exhibits. The Giants of Lindsay, the William and J.D. Flavel story, was basically our ROM of the Kawarthas premier exhibit, and it was so fantastic that the federal government gave us a grant to digitize that story for the Digital Museums of Canada and put it online bilingually because it's an important national story about our community. And we've received several federal national grants in the last little bit, which I will be telling you about a little bit more. But our job that makes us different is that we take our community stories from all corners of Kawartha Lakes, not just Lindsay, not just Omimi, but all Manvers, Pontypool, Janetville, Bob Cajun, you know where you all are. We have a massive collection coming in right now. We've been working with a donor, and it is a game changer. It is 200,000 photographs of over 200 years of Coboconk and surrounding area history before there was even development there. We're looking at, we're going to have to build. Our growth plan has to accelerate. We need to build, we need the space. It's a way for us to share a history that's never been seen and will never be contextualized in any other way, but how we do it, how we work with the family member to bring those stories to our community in a way only community members can. And that's why our community museum is so important to maintain and keep open and grow. Yesterday, we had people come into our museum, and they were from Oshawa. You know, Wednesday afternoon and a snowy day, came for a tour. One of the gentlemen is with Probus in Durham, would love for me to come and do a presentation for them because of the tourism aspect, would love to have everybody from all of their hundreds of people of Probus come from Durham to see our museum. Another couple came in, young couple, they're thinking of moving here. They want to see what the museum had because they want to see what the culture was like. And we're open year-round. We're the only museum open year-round. And this is one of the big draws for us in tourism aspect. Next slide. In 2022, we were able to host and hire 2 co-op students working with 2 different school boards, 2 work placement positions for people getting first jobs on the job training for VCCS, 12 Canada Summer Job positions, many of them returning students, 4 Young Canada Works Building Careers and Heritage internships for post-secondary graduates, 1 digital curation contract for Digital Museum Canada, and a full-time collections assistant through Canadian Heritage to review and develop our extensive medical collection, both for our local doctors and hospital and medical equipment. And this is in addition to myself as a manager, our amazing volunteers, and our board of directors. Our people are what make us so good at what we do now. And that's one of the reasons why we're here today. Next slide. As I said, we've been collecting for a long time. We've been doing this for decades. And we're close to 65% digitally complete. We estimate it'll be the end of 2024 before our collection is fully digitally cataloged, and that's including current items being received. Last year alone, we took in over 8,000 items. And that was during a pandemic. A lot of people were cleaning out their closets, and we take in things in all sorts of disciplines: furniture, artwork, community items, uniforms, military history, textiles galore, home items. It's just across the board amazing, all the different kinds of disciplines that we have. Last year, our revenues were close to $400,000. When our takeover team came to the museum in 2018, it was a seasonal museum, open just for the tourist season in the summer, and they did $32,000 that year. In 2018, they did $32,000. So even last year, being closed half the year, we were able to raise almost $400,000. We run no debt at all, and we've been able to put away a little reserve fund as a little cushion. We've also received several significant grants from the government, including Digital Museum of Canada, as I've told you. Also, Museum Assistance Program grants for Exhibition Circulation Fund, bringing in a fantastic exhibit called Space to Spoon from the Ingenium Culture Museum in Ottawa for Agriculture, which we showcased at the Lex this year, and then brought it back to the museum for the balance of the fall. At the Lex alone, there was just shy of 2,000 direct touch interactions in 5 days. That's an incredibly big metric, especially in a pandemic year, that people were actually willing to touch it and interact with it. And many people really loved the idea that we could bring in an agricultural exhibit that was very high tech. It was about how satellite radar was being used to assist Kawartha farmers on the ground in real time. Lots of the new tractors these days have the little like GIS systems in their tractors that they can follow along with it. We also, in the last year, completed a complete rebrand of the museum. You may have noticed our new signage, our new website, our new social media, and the fact that we are representing that we are for the entire city of Kawartha Lakes. We're not just a jail museum. We have exhibits about all sorts of different aspects of our heritage. Next slide. So far in January, we've been awarded grants and revenue of $227,000 just in the first month of the year. We have many more grants that have been written that we do expect a high rate of return on. And we're also working with those grants to do things like the conservation display of our military collection. We're going to be doing a World War II exhibit this year with beautiful new display cases and conservation mannequins, thanks to the Lindsay Legacy Chest Fund. The national grant is a digitization access to heritage grant through the Museum Assistance Program Canada Heritage, and it is to digitize our Lindsay Daily Post newspaper books from 1861 to 1971. It's an incredible project, and it will be a year-long project, hiring 2 full-time staff. The national grant for the art of collecting is a take on an exhibit that's in our building right now that features the Laidlaw sisters, Jean and Peggy, and the items that they collected through their lives. And it talks about how we value things that we collect, and it's a kind of a thinking piece as well, because we invite the viewer to talk about what they collect as well, think about what they value and keep in their homes now. It has also been determined to be a nationally relevant story, and we have a grant to put that as well and their entire collections online bilingually, which is pretty amazing. We also received a grant in support of tourism initiatives that will help us through Q1 as well. So we kind of keep going, just keep going, adding and adding and adding for all the things that we do. Next slide. So just letting you know a little bit about where we spend our money, because people always want to know where we spend every dollar. And we can squeeze a dollar like so hard. Next slide. We created some of these slides for the Giving Tuesday in Q4 to help us on our fundraising efforts. So, building maintenance, utilities, our insurance and audit, it's about 5% of our expenses. In an 18-month period, it was about $35,000. Next slide. Fundraising, marketing, and communications ended up being a total of 6.4% at $27,000. Next slide. Exhibition development, so creating new exhibits and improving exhibition supports within the museum and out in the community was 7.3%, and that equated to over $30,000. Next slide. Technology and software, this is one of our big expenses. Our software packages are not inexpensive, and we have spent a lot on technology, as what I've described to you in hardware. So that ended up being $47,000-ish. Next slide. And this is where it may surprise you. Conservation supplies. People don't understand what it costs to protect the items that we have. This 19.2% equates to $80,000 in archival boxing. Some of our boxes are $100 a piece. It's not the same as going to M&M's and waiting for their truck to come in. These are very, very special boxes to protect the items, whether it is textiles or archival items or artwork or jewelry, all sorts of different things that we have to do in a special way. Next slide. And then we get to wages. So this 47% is our largest cost. Our building is about 8,000 square feet. We can't run it just with one person at the door. Like it's not like a shop where you go in. You need multiple people for safety and to do the work that we do. This represents about $195,000 we spent on wages in those 18 months. Next slide. Our dedication to our mission must be matched with operational support with this council, from this council, and that is our ask today. Our largest risk and blockade to sustainable growth has been our lack of core operational staff. Over COVID and throughout the last 3 years, we executed a strategic plan that we had developed for 2021 to 2023. And we actually had to start our next strat plan process early because we completed our goals, because we were able to use that time to do more work than we had even thought we could manage in those 3 years. But what we realized was that we're so fragile in the one regard of base staff, management, collections manager, archivist, somebody for the door, so that we can always be open every day, but we can ensure that we meet legislative requirements for the level of staff that the high skills that we need. Museum standards are legislated by the Canadian government. We have to meet them in a certain way, or we aren't allowed to be a museum. And we want to take care of our items the best that we can. So there are many grants out there for subcontract staff, grant staff, not for management, not for the core staff. The Canadian Museum Operating Grant that you may have heard of before by the provincial government, it was last opened in 2016. We meet the requirements for it. It is not open, and it will not be open in the foreseeable future. Our connections in the ministry at Queen's Park have let us know this. It's not opening anytime soon. It's a closed avenue to us. So we don't have access to that. So that leaves the municipalities, and that's where our sisters and brothers in other jurisdictions are getting their funding for these very small amounts of core funding that we can't meet in any other way. The volunteer base has dissipated sector-wide, and they're not really coming back, not in any way, shape, or form that makes sense to our building. The volunteers that we need, if we were to have volunteer staff, have to be high-skilled. It's not the same as running the canteen at a hockey game, where that's a volunteerism that a lot of people can do, and it's a short commitment. It's easy in and out. But our museum needs consistent staff every day. Contract staff must be managed, and a lot of these grants are requiring a qualified staff that is qualified by the ministry to oversee them. And it also gives us the ability to manage and execute multi-year exhibition programming and community outreach planning. It has continuity of care for our donors and our foundational asks. And the biggest issue that we're finding in reaching those donors and getting the success from those donors is they want to know what the municipality is providing for us. It's kind of, It's kind of like they want to know that you're buying into, that you support us too. It's like a you first kind of scenario. A little support from the city will help us be able to close a lot of those deals because they want to see that commitment from the city and that stamp of approval for our operations. So, next slide. So we've identified that a $250,000 contribution directly towards staffing and payroll would assist us in meeting our needs for permanent full-time skilled staff. This will remove the element of fragility that we talked about and that we've identified in our risk assessment. We would like to continue this as a yearly line item in the city budget. For every dollar that is invested in heritage organizations like ours, it results in $11.70 in increased revenues for the surrounding businesses. It doesn't necessarily come back to us, but it goes to the hotels, the restaurants, the gas stations, the shops. It goes to the for-profit businesses around us. So I'm here asking, I'm just a girl in front of council, with my Jerry Maguire moment, saying, could you please help us, help you? Because we're poised for the growth. We're not able to meet the demand that we have now. I just simply don't have enough people to meet the community demand that we have. We've kind of grown a little bit faster and better than we kind of expected, which is a fantastic place to be in, but it has put us in a bit of a position. So we're asking for support, and if you can help us, then we're going to keep growing and providing this service for our community and tourists alike, for the municipality. And I appreciate any support that you can give, and I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a lot, I know.
Thank you for your presentation. Very well done, very detailed. I'll see if there are any questions for you from council. Councillor Smeaton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm fully aware that our questioning is to stick to budget only, but I will say, as a musician, nerves mean you care. So that's good. Co-op students, when I was looking through this afternoon, the co-op student jumped out at me as something that, is that with funding something that you would like to see grow perhaps, or certainly stay the same? Did it have a big impact? Would you like to see more of that? Were they all co-op students through the high school, so there's no funding, or were they co-ops that were from other areas that might need funding?
So for the co-op students, we can't have co-op students in unless we have dedicated full-time staff, because we can't make the commitment.
So it's, yeah.
So without full-time staffing to do that, to do the oversight, we can't offer that program. And we're the only museum or cultural heritage aspect in the entire city of Kawartha Lakes that's open year-round. The other ones can't offer that option. We generally have a line of students waiting to come to us. We have a new one starting next week.
The graphing that you showed,
Yes.
is it fluid for next year, or are you hoping to do the same programming, same ideas next year based on what you have this year? I asked because seeing Space to Spoon
Yes.
with my family was incredible, and I'm just curious if funding are you giving yourself wiggle room for maybe 2 of those presentations should it have gone well, or are you stuck to the same planning?
Yes.
That's stuck is a horrible word.
We are applying for the Exhibition Circulation Fund again. We're actually hoping to bring in an Indigenous exhibit this time. That's an area that we can't curate ourselves authentically and well. So we look to the experts to help us with that. So for our budget for 2023, we're looking to approve a draft budget next week of close to $700,000 based on our current expectations of grant revenues, if we can kind of keep our core together. We're not closing. I'm not even coming close to saying that. We're not. We'll find a way to crawl through it, but we could do it so much better and faster with some help.
Last but not least, BIA, being
Yes.
someone who sits on it, is there interest at all funding, if there were funding as you're hoping, things like ghost tours where they resurrected, horrible choice of words. Okay, I planned it.
You do know our building's haunted.
Well, it's the old jail, right? Are those sorts of cooperative cooperation with a local BIA something that you
Absolutely. We're always looking forward to collaborative partnerships in all areas.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Super quickly, thank you for the great presentation and the level of detail. Similar to the hospital ask, I'm just wondering if you'd be able to break out that $250,000,
Absolutely.
a little more specificity for our review.
The 250 would be directly towards payroll staffing only. We don't really need help finding all the other money. It's just those core positions, and we would be very pleased to provide financials and anything that you need.
Yeah, just a summary of kind of what
Absolutely.
that looks like. Thanks so much.
Councillor Ashmore, then Joyce.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Barbara, thank you for your presentation. Just two quick questions. The city hired a curator last year. Did that help you out at all in your record keeping and archiving?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Councillor Ashmore. Ms. Love is a wonderful colleague in the fact that we can call on her if we were to need to have a discussion about a particular item. She doesn't work in our building, nor does she do work for us. So as a colleague to draw on for, information, wonderful. Absolutely working with the ECDev department as a whole to promote arts and culture and work collaboratively, absolutely yes. But she's not an asset for us in our building to do the work for us. She's tied up with the city collection.
Okay, and finally, your building, the bricks and mortar that you're in, is it a building that's working out for you there, or is it, in your opinion, is it functional for you, or what are your thoughts on that? Like, obviously, it's too expensive to move to another place. Is it a functionable building for you right now?
Thank you.
In the future and into the future?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Councillor Ashmore, we love our building. We are so thrilled to be able to keep a heritage building like this open to the public. I know that the capital budget is looking at doing some repairs on the foundation and some roofing work and a few water issues. As any building from 1863 would need, some updating maintenance upon occasion. Having the walls come down was, a little bit sad, but they weren't in good condition. They were actually pretty dangerous, but it has allowed us the opportunity to provide for the growth factor that we need. We need more parking, we're gonna have green space, and it does provide the space for a future capital build to expand that building and meet the needs of the museum as we grow. And we do have, some plans for that. So, which the museum would raise the money for. We can raise capital money. It's kind of hard. People want to put money towards things that are brick and mortar. A little harder to get them to pay for staff.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Richardson, do you have some? No, you're okay. And Councillor Joyce, you're okay. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.
And we will refer your request to the budget deliberations.
Thank you.
So can I have a motion to receive the presentation for the 2023 budget request from Kawartha Lakes Museum and Archives and recommend it to staff, send it to staff for deliberation and inclusion in decision units in the 2023 budget? Councillor Smeaton, Councillor Joyce. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. We'll move on now to item 6 on the agenda, which is deputations regarding the 2023 budget for the City of Kawartha Lakes. And I'll remind the people who are giving deputations that they have 5 minutes. The first deputation is regarding senior health services and accommodations in long-term care. And I understand it's by Ms. Gloria Graham-Weir and Mr. Alessandro Presenza, but Ms. Weir is ill, so it will only be Mr. Presenza. Good evening, welcome, and go ahead as soon as you're ready.
Okay, well, I'd like to say good evening, Mr. Mayor, city staff, and councilors, and really everyone listening. So, yeah, my name had been added as a speaker under the deputation was originally requested by Gloria Graham-Weir regarding senior health services and accommodations in long-term care. Maybe I should say, just before I start, I think Gloria would have done a much better job than me tonight because it's her deputation. But I'm going to try to just share some stuff that might help you, and I am available after this if you do want to ever reach me and find out a little bit more about me. I am on LinkedIn. My professional LinkedIn page is Alessandro E, and that's because there's another one. Same name as I am, so I added my middle name. And then I'm on social media. I have a Facebook group I started in 2018, which is currently called the Hands of Hope, Mani de Esperanza. It's a group that we started, a support group for seniors and families and advocates and the long-term care workers. And before that, it was just a family support group. So I'm going to try to be brief. And again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about a very personal subject. I lost both my parents in long-term care. How I met Gloria Graham, where was she? She joined a Facebook group. She joined a group, and I recognized some of her posts, and I just reached out to her because I just thought she was just very insightful. And so why am I here tonight? I guess I'm here because she asked me to come and listen originally. And then when I found out she couldn't make it, I kind of got into this situation where I'm going to try to share a little bit why some things that might help. So Gloria has become a friend of mine over the years. Huge supporter of the work we do with seniors, and huge support of the work I do with the deaf community. I really want to start off also by clarifying that this is not about Gloria. I don't want to make it about Gloria. I don't think this is an issue that she herself has had to deal with, because I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds and maybe even thousands of seniors and families and advocates and long-term care workers over the last 5 years. And it's really a common problem we have. So her story is pretty typical, though. You want to take care of your loved ones. So you want to advocate, you want to take care of your mom, your dad, your loved one. And in doing so, there's really never really been the right focus by our governments at all levels, actually, in taking care of seniors. And so I will say that because people can go from having a very successful career to ending up almost homeless. And I have people not to mention again, but all across the country, this story is pretty common. In fact, it almost happened to myself and to ourselves. So we can offer help after my 5 minutes is over, and I'm willing to just offer any help. Now, the seniors have built our communities long before we were here. Many of the seniors have built our country, frankly. And so I just ask that as we age and as we sometimes lose our careers, that we don't forget our seniors. So I do work for part-time for a wealth management firm. So we deal with a lot of families that don't have money set aside. They don't have enough money put away for their retirement. It's very common in Canada. And so a lot of seniors need to rely on old age security, CPP, guaranteed income supplement. And what happens is it's just not enough money to even rent an apartment when you need it. So Gloria is 80 years old. So pretty typical story. Even if she were to apply, or a person like her in her position would apply for some long-term care, low-cost housing assistance, it would take about 5 to 7 years to get approved. So there's hundreds of stories like hers, and I guess we just need more attention on our seniors. We don't want to forget them. Like I said, just want to ask you to stand up and let's take a little bit more time to listen to their stories, and not dispose of our seniors, to provide better accommodation in our budgets for seniors, and to honor what our seniors have willingly gave to us and our community. For all of us sitting here, there were, before we got here, at least before I did, there were seniors.
I'm going to ask
fighting
you to
this
wrap
battle.
up now, if you would, please.
Sure. So yeah, I just want to thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor and City Council and staff, and for the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll see if there's any questions for you. Any questions for the deputant? Seeing none. Thank you for coming tonight and showing an interest in our budget process.
Thank you.
Yes. I have a motion to receive the deputation from Mr. Presenza. Councillor Perry. Councillor McDonald. All in favor? And that's passed. Our next deputation is Mr. William Denby and Mr. Greg Don. You have 5 minutes for the two of you. Did she sign? Yeah, of course she can go before you. I'm sorry, we just had difficulty finding her name. Thank you.
There it is.
Okay. Yes.
You okay now?
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay.
And this
You
is
have 5 minutes.
Okay, this is going to be less than 5 minutes. This is on a little different note. My name is Mirka Kriska, and I live at 33 Weldon Road, Lindsay. I am 78 years old and also a widow. I'm on my own water well, and I do not need any water from the city. I do not want any water from the city, and I do not get any water from the city. Yet I'm billed every 3 months $50 for mandatory connection fee. They threatened me that they put lien on my house if I don't pay it. And given my age and my circumstances, I cannot fight this at the court. At this point, I paid $1,053.57 for the water. If I charge somebody for services not rendered, I'm going to be charged with fraud. This is fraud. This is wrong and this is illegal. And now I would like to know if, okay, under what authority anybody does charge me this fee, this service fee? I would like to know. Also, I would like to get my money back if possible. I cannot afford this. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to stay there for a minute in case anyone has any questions for you? Are there any questions from council? No? Seeing none, can I have a motion to receive the deputation? Do you have a question?
Not a question, just
Sorry, go ahead.
Just say thank you for the deputation and know that we've heard your remarks tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a motion to receive the deputation. Councillor Perry, Councillor Yeo, all in favor? Thank you, that's passed. Now, Mr. Denby, if you like. You have Mr. Greg Don with you?
No, that's what I was waiting for. I'll proceed. Okay, thank you. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Mayor, Council, and staff. I'm with the Kawartha Lakes Taxpayers Association. I'm the president. And I don't want you to take what I have to say personal. It's a message from our members. What I've done is I've prepared what would have been the written submission. But based on what I've witnessed tonight so far, I'm going to move off of that. I was here today, as you all know, when the Municipal Affairs informed the Council of your duties and your responsibilities under what I call the Bible, the Municipal Act. There's a number of acts that deal with the authority of what you operate under. This is the main one. And what we've seen in the course of since you've been elected, a lot of, we'll call them mistakes. We've tried to enlighten you by
I'm going to interrupt you, Mr. Denby. You're here to make a deputation.
And I am making a deputation.
2023 budget.
I'm going to get in.
Very far afield.
Hey, you remember today what the Integrity Commissioner said to you? It's my 5 minutes.
It is your 5 minutes?
And I'm going to get to the 2023 budget.
Thank you.
I'm just giving you a little preamble. So, in the Municipal Act, it lays out very clearly that a municipality cannot inflict additional taxes increases on a municipality and its taxpayers when we're in a recession or we're under distress financially. Unless you're awake and you go outside in the real world where people go to work and they earn their money and they pay taxes every week, they can't afford any more taxes at the municipal level, at the provincial level, or the federal level. So what we've made it very clear in all our communications with you, we've invited you out a number of times to meet with our members. You've never showed up. Never showed up. We're not good enough for you to meet. We're taxpayers. What I'm telling you right now is very clear. If you pass the 2023 budget as proposed, you'll find yourself in court very fast. Thank you. Any questions?
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Are there any questions for Mr. Denby? I see none. Thank you for your deputation.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to receive the deputation from Mr. Denby?
And, Mr. Mayor, I will make sure Kathy gets these so that she gives each one of you a copy of it.
Thank you.
It's all in the deputation.
I need a motion to receive the deputation. Councillor Joyce, Deputy Mayor Richardson. All in favor? All in favor? Thank you. That's passed. The next deputation is by Mr. Greg Wade and Miss Gwen Denby, but I understand Miss Denby is not presenting. So, Mr. Wade?
No, he would lose, and a part I don't need to speak for. He would lose his temper, so he's chose not to speak.
Thank you. Next deputation is from Mr. Doug Shaw and Mr. Bob Newell. Mr. Shaw, you and Mr. Newell together have 5 minutes, if he's presenting with you.
Mr. Knoll?
No?
There's no Mr. Knoll here.
Okay, thank you.
I'm by myself, so.
Fine. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being able to speak tonight, council, and members of the staff and public. My name's Doug Shaw. I'm the president of the Coalition Against Unlawful Water Billing. Marika is one of my members. There's many other members that are being charged for a service not rendered. And we have fought this thing for 3 years. We've asked, we pleaded, we went to your council, okay, and went and asked for these charges to be dropped. We've been nice. We've been very patient. We waited 6 months from the Robinson report, and we ended up with nothing from our lawyer. I don't think our lawyer even got it. Okay, so here we are. I'm asking again that you drop these municipal charges. Marika is not the only one that has been put into distress. There's been other members that are aged, okay, and they're in a position where they were actually put in a position where somebody came to their door and said that they were going to foreclose on their house. This is illegal. This is a fraudulent act. Okay, I have asked the RCMP, okay, what they thought. I asked the OPP what they thought. Both said the same thing. It's wide open for investigation. My lawyer will do that investigation. And if we have to, we'll charge the city for all the consequences. Another thing, the Integrity Commissioner was in today talking about things that happen. Without my consent, the Industrial Properties Division of this City of Kawartha Lakes put my farm up for sale without my consent. This is breach of confidentiality because all my information was put across a website without my consent. Okay? This means for a very, very serious lawsuit. Now, I'm asking for my privacy back. I'm asking for no intimidation. I was not asked anything to do with the situation with Mr. Flatto, okay, who put an MZO across the back part of my property. It makes it very difficult for me to farm and produce food for the public. Even the public here has to eat every day. Okay, I'm an experienced farmer. I moved from Markham for expropriation. This is just another member of expropriation. Okay, and I'll make it very difficult for Mr. Flatto, and I have every right to. Because other area farmers, okay, we pay taxes. We have the right to farm. We have the right to produce food as oilseed producers in this country. And we have a very large standing of farmers behind us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll see if there's any questions for you.
I'd like to ask one more thing. This is a municipal act, okay? There's operations in this municipal act against billing for water that you're not hooked up to. My father gave me when I was 16 this book. It's called You and the Law. This is the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. There's against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to charge for services not rendered. That means that any law in this country is broken. Because you know what? Somebody can come up to you and say, you know what? You owe me money. There is no legal contract. There is nothing to bind the contract. These people that have never signed a contract with the City of Kawartha Lakes, they were just billed for water. In my case, I had 2 municipal people come up to my back or up to my front and walk around on private property without my consent, which is against the law, and look for a water shut off. I have 3 adequate wells. I'm not hooked on to water or sewers. I'll give you one little unsaid. I was there when the pipe was put in for the fire protection of the 2 parking lots for the front part of the jail. I was part of that process. I was part of the process of bringing the jail here. It was a provincial project to have that pipe put in there. Municipal Act states that it's against the law to charge for a provincially funded asset. Right in this law book right here. How many other people in the City of Kawartha Lakes are being charged for services, okay, that were provincially funded? The RCMP will, if I ask them, they will do an investigation and there could be charges. Thank you for your time.
I'll see if there are any questions for you. Are there any questions for Mr. Shaw? Seeing none, could I have a motion to receive the deputation? Councillor Smeaton, Councillor Ashmore. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Our next deputation is Mr. Peter Weigang. Is Mr. Weigang here? I don't see him. He did submit a letter which we will receive into correspondence later in the meeting. If Mr. Weigang shows up, we will fit him into the agenda. Next up is a deputation regarding water billing for the 2023 budget. Oh no, we had that. I'm sorry. Yeah. We have signed up Miss Angel Godzo. You have 5 minutes, Ms. Godzo.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, and city staff. Thank you for the overview of the budget. And thank you to the public here for allowing me your time to speak. This evening, I'd like to address my concerns with the proposed property tax increase and express some actions I'd like to see implemented to justify it. We all know that the cost of living has increased everywhere. Groceries, gas, and building supplies are just a few examples of everyday essentials that have skyrocketed and put all of our budgets out of whack. Personally speaking, I had to renew my mortgage last month, and I'm now paying an increase of $600 monthly due to rising interest rates. Unfortunately, my income has not increased accordingly. As a small business owner and a mom with 4 kids at home, I can easily see how these rising costs can be crippling. We've lost many small businesses in our community, and housing is at a crisis point, with people experiencing both food and housing insecurity. While a property tax increase of less than $200 a year may not make or break my business or household, I'd like to see exactly how it will be utilized and what measures council intends to take to ensure every avenue possible is being pursued to wisely use our resources and ensure fiscal responsibility. By the way, the budget was pretty detailed and good, so thank you for the overview. I commend council in the opposition of Bill 23 for defending our environmentally sensitive areas that are essential to our agriculture and tourism. Waiving the revenue from development permits and fees and fast-tracking new subdivisions without proper due process is not an acceptable solution. I'd like to see less outsourcing, more utilization of our resources for road maintenance and construction, as well as enforced requirements for developers to use local labor and trades. I'd like to see more initiatives towards sustainability, such as promoting greenhouse food and energy production, a labor and resource pool, more efficient, greener waste management, and retrofitting programs. I'd also like to see a comprehensive per capita formula for the allocation of funds, both from tax revenues and provincial transfer money. I understand that the cost of delivering services in our beautiful communities has also increased, and none of us want a decrease in services. But if I could see what are the exact costs to deliver these services to the various demographics in our communities, including cottagers, students, and all types of residents, along with a comprehensive plan of how to keep these costs to a minimum while creating jobs and protecting our resources, I'll gladly pay the increase in my property tax. Thank you.
Thank you. If you stay there for a minute, and I'll see if there are any questions. Are there any questions for Ms. Godzo? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. Very eloquent.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to receive that deputation, please? Councillor Perry, Councillor Warren. All in favor? and that's passed. We have no more deputations. Is there anyone who hasn't spoken who wishes to speak to the 2023 budget?
You give me the last 5 minutes, it's not bad.
Okay, you can have the last 5 minutes, but the clerk wants to know your name.
Oh, it's Ramon Blais-Couture, you should know me by now. Okay, now then you're talking about 2023 budget. I want to know if you're going to do something about road services for unassumed road. As our taxes are gonna go up, and I get 2 garbage bags a week, I really think that we deserve something. The city took over the deed of McGuire Beach, and I know I've been talking for a lot of people for at least 7 or 8 years, but we need the road service. I know the city give 2 loads of gravel a year. If I match those 2 loads, I have 2 grading a year. Thank you very much, because all the taxes I give you is a lot more money than 2 grading and garbage bag. But I really want to see something done. I called you, Mr. Mayor, last week because they didn't want to pick up our garbage because they say the road was not maintained. I have the proof that we pay for salt because we have to use Emery Group to do our service. McGuire Beach have over 150 properties. Some are empty lot, some are full house. People refuse to pay the association fees because they say the city owned the road. As per Andy Letman, when he came to a meeting 8 years ago, he said, I own the road, you cannot do nothing to me. But when you own something, you take care of it. I will ask you guys, that's new, some have been sitting there for a year, and good evening, Mr. Ho, maybe you can help me on that one. We need help. Some unassumed road already have service free from the city. We did have service many years ago, but we were charged extra money on top of our tax bill. They were invoicing us, and we have to pay extra money to the city. This is not right in the book. As a taxpayer already, I should not have to pay the city extra money to plow my road. On top of it, you're welcome to my house anytime you want, because you know what? They plowed half of McGuire Beach because that one belonged full-time to the city. And better than still going down, put the plow down, turn around, go down to the end, come back out and be more safe than reverse a plowed. One is a very busy road with school bus. I'm asking for common sense here. I've been here many, many times, and I'm not going away, and I will not quit until I see something done. Can you at least do something for the budget 2023 to make sure that we can have that service? We give over $500,000 in taxes on that road for 2 garbage bags. You own the road, at least give us this. If you don't give it to McGuire Beach, don't give it to others. Because some other road get plowed at no cost. And if I cannot win something, I'm not asking for grass cutting and new culverts. I'm just asking of common sense. When is a snowstorm, like tonight? And by the way, the road is a mess. I don't know where the plow was, but it was a nightmare driving up here. I put my life in risk here for my residents on McGuire Beach. Because I promise I will stand for what I believe. I'm asking Mr. Elsme for help for many years. I asked him at you for many years. But now that we have new people sitting on the board, I would like to see the same treatment as a taxpayer for the road service for the winter.
You need to wrap up, please.
Pardon, I'm wrapping off now because I have to go home. It will take me 3 hours because your road is a mess.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you have any question, I got an email as well too. You can find me there.
Thank you. We'll see if there's any questions for you. Are there any questions for Ms. Blais-Couture? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you for the silence.
Can I have a motion to receive that presentation, please? Councillor Ashmore, Councillor Warren. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. That's all the deputations we have tonight. We'll now move on to item 7 in the agenda, which is correspondence regarding the 2023 budget for the City of Kawartha Lakes. We have one piece of correspondence to receive. It's from Mr. Peter Weigang. I need a motion to receive that correspondence. Councillor Warren, Councillor McDonald. All in favor? And that's passed. Item 8 is confirming bylaw, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of a special council meeting held Thursday, February 2nd, 2023 be read a first, second, and third time, passed, numbered, signed, and the corporate seal attached. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Richardson, Councillor Perry, all in favor? And that's passed. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Yeo, Councillor Smeaton, all in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight.